Welcome to Chat with the Chair. I know you've missed us. Welcome to 2021. Happy New Year. We're looking forward to a bigger and better year than 2020. That's in the rearview mirror. But we're hoping everybody had a happy holiday season, a Merry Christmas, and a happy and blessed New Year. But we're glad you could join us. And you can rest assured that we've got a great show this evening. And we're going to start it off with a special guest that I know that everybody out there knows from a variety of different things that he's been doing in his lifetime. Tell us who you are.
Jim Cruz, Terre Haute. Been here my whole life. North graduate, ISU graduate.
Now, don't get ahead of me here, Jimmy. I mean, I'm gonna ask the question. This is the Chat with the Chair, not with Chat with Cruz.
Joe.
All right,
Sorry,
so
Joe.
I don't get ahead of you. But you know, the most important question though of the day is, what do you think of the Blazer?
I like it. Very impressed with it. You know that?
All right. So hopefully I know you're all that law enforcement background. You're observant about your surroundings. I'm sure you noticed that map over your right shoulder.
Absolutely.
So, given that your long history from Vigo County, let's tell our viewers where you grew up here, Jimmy.
Let me see where we're at here. Probably somewhere in here, Joe.
Yeah.
What do you think?
East Sider.
What do you think? Right.
East Sider, somewhere in there. That's a big range there.
I can't go wrong, can I?
No. So tell them where you grew up. Tell us about that.
I grew up out in East Glen, Sealaville area.
All right.
You know, back in them days when I was growing up, we had the Glen Center, and I was very fortunate.
Tell everybody where the Glen Center was, Jimmy.
It's US 40 in Chamberlain. There's a church now there. Don't quote me. I think it's New Life. I can't remember of it, but they built a new church out. It's beautiful. But the old Glen Center is where I grew up. You know, my dad went to school there. My dad grew up in the Glen home out there, but he went to high school at Glen. And you know, we grew up out east, so the Glen Center was a second home to me. And to a lot of kids and the people who went out there with me then, I mean, we just miss it. It was a neat place, but it's sad, Joe, places like that actually are not here anymore because some of the memories I made there are just absolutely amazing.
Tell us about your family.
I have a wife, Rhiannon. I have a daughter named Mia. She's 6 years old. She goes to Devaney. My wife, she works at the Vigo County Health Department.
Well, we're going to get to them here. Now, but your mom and dad and
my mom and dad, they're still alive. They're still living. They live in Terre Haute. My brother just last week moved down to Naples, Florida. He was a Carmel resident for the last 20 years, and he finally got tired of the weather and moved down to Naples.
So your dad went to Glen.
Correct.
What about you? Where did you go to elementary and middle school?
East Side, grew up and went to Lost Creek.
Right.
Lost Creek went to Woodrow Wilson.
Do you know, Jimmy, we've been talking about mascots. Do we know, did the Lost Creek have a mascot?
A lion, I believe it was.
Lost Creek Lions.
I believe
Excellent.
so.
So I knew you would know. That's good. The Lions. So you were a Lion, then a Warrior?
Warrior.
Then
a Patriot.
All right, so
Patriot.
were they still junior highs at that time? Or
there was.
Okay.
When I went to North, it was still sophomore, junior, senior. There was no freshmen up there yet. So
all right.
I think it's a year after I left, or the second year was when the freshmen came in.
So talk about your childhood. Growing up, you spent a lot of time at the Glen.
Spent a lot of time at the Glen Center between playing basketball. Was a big softball player growing up. You know, Larry Wilson and John Benton actually ran the Glen for many years. And softball with Larry just passed away here in the last year or two. But
great
softball,
guy.
Absolutely. And with softball, we traveled all around the United States playing softball. I played from probably when I was 8 until I was 16. But
is that right?
Some of the things I saw and some of the talent I saw out there was absolutely amazing. But I love softball. Haven't played in a lot of years, but you know, at the Glen, that was either basketball or softball out there.
So who were some of your mentors in basketball back in those days?
Mentors, you know, growing up, Brian Evans was one of them. Brian was only a few years in front of me. Of course, Larry Bird, if you want to look on the pro level. I remember sitting there on Sundays. Joe, you probably too, watching Larry Bird and Magic Johnson play was absolutely. I was young at the time, but just sitting there on a Sunday watching on the floor with my parents watching that game was pretty remarkable. Actually, it was pretty cool.
So talk about then you matriculated to Terre Haute North. About your years at Terre Haute North.
Terre Haute North went from I graduated North in '93. Played basketball up there 3 years.
And who's your coach at Terre Haute North?
Jim Jones, which a lot of people know Jimmy J by, you know, he's the one that coached Larry Bird in high school.
Right.
Great guy. Owed Coach Jones a lot. Him and Coach Heiss are both assistant, but Coach Jones, you know, he lit a fire under me.
Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I wasn't the best student in high school, and he got on me about, he was my counselor, so he always watched my grades. But as far as basketball, he'd have me every morning. He'd have me in there during the season, especially at 6 in the morning, working on all different kinds of drills. A lot of days I showed up late, but
I want to talk about that, but I'm just curious, did he ever teach you about baking chocolate chip cookies? Did you ever?
He just got, when I was a senior, he just got started in that.
Is that right?
Yes, he did. And somebody, he didn't do it when I was there, but somebody said he was selling them.
Yes.
That's what I heard, but he wasn't doing that yet when I was there.
He hadn't gone on to be a enterprising yet.
Yeah.
Is that right?
No, not yet.
You were probably one of his testing the cookies on you.
Probably. I ate a lot of donuts back then.
Is that right?
Cookies not as much, but I think Coach lives in Jasper now. I reached out to him here about a year ago, and it was nice to catch up with him. I got inducted to the 25th anniversary for high school basketball up in Indianapolis and Newcastle. I think it was last year or the year before, and Coach got to show up, so that's the first time I got to see him. It was great.
So talk about some of the drills that he pushed on you guys back in those days.
A lot of, back then weightlifting wasn't big really, but he did have us doing drills, different cone drills, a lot of rebounding drills, a lot of shooting drills, a lot of, different kind of passing drills, a lot of defensive drills, just a lot of basic things back then.
Now, a lot of people knew you and followed you as big as high school basketball was around here, but you took it to another level, being a Division I recruit and being a player at Indiana State University. Tell us about that.
As you know, Joe, I was always undersized for my position. Never really expected. I just enjoyed the play. Never really expected to get recruited from a college, let alone a Division I. But fortunate enough, Tate's Locks recruited me. He was the coach at ISU at that time. So, they offered me a scholarship to sign and did all 4 years at ISU. It was probably the best time of my life. But what amazing experience. When I graduated high school, I made it to the Indiana All-Star team, which I was the first one from Terre Haute North to make it the All-Star team. So that was the start of it. And my first year at ISU, Coach Jones, great guy, Tate's Lock, he don't have much of a filter. So my freshman year, it was a little bit of a learning curve, just like for anybody. But with Tate's, man, it's crazy.
You probably expanded your vocabulary.
That and everywhere we traveled to, I heard some words, few choice words about me that I didn't know about, but I Coach Locke a lot too. I mean, he was a great coach. He was there, I think 1 year. I think he was there my first year. Then he ended up letting me go up the first year, and that's when they hired Sherman Diller, came in and finished out my career.
Jimmy, you among normal people, you're a huge guy. But
correct.
As you say, on the Division I basketball court, you weren't necessarily the biggest guy out there. But at least in my lifetime and watching Indiana State basketball, pound for pound, inch for inch, there's no greater player that ever played Indiana State than Jimmy Cruz.
Well, I appreciate that, Joe. A lot of people say, I couldn't really do much. I wasn't a great shooter, wasn't a great jumper. But I could rebound. For some reason, I could rebound. I don't know why. I think that's because I was quick off my feet. But people always ask me, it's like, how do you get so many rebounds? I was like, well, I just miss a lot of shots. I'm just smart, that?
Well, he's very humble about this. Now, you got the record in Indiana State for the most rebounds in a game.
Correct.
Which is over a lot of guys, including a guy named Larry Bird.
Correct.
So you hold that record, which was 25.
25,
That's a season's
yeah,
work for some guys.
I think before I broke, I think it held for 25 years. So I graduated ISU in '97. So, it's been, what is that, 26 years or so? Hell, so.
But I guess with all that, and you were a tremendous rebounder. I don't know anybody that's been through the program that's been a better rebounder than you. And again, at your size, there's a lot more that goes into just being quick off your feet. You definitely had the fundamentals, which I'd like you to talk to some of our younger viewers about, but the tenacity and just the desire to go get the ball, and that's what sets you apart, I think. But as I was reflecting, I guess I also didn't realize you also led the team in scoring.
Yeah, I did.
Is that right?
I did, somehow or another.
So you weren't missing too many shots.
Had a lot of layups, but somehow I did lead the team in scoring. I think it was my senior year, so I averaged a double-double my senior year.
So you led the team in rebounding all those years, but in scoring as well.
Yeah, but if you think about it, Joel, in rebounding, when you rebound, you're always by the basket, so it's easy to score, you know what I mean? So it's not like I was taking jump shots.
Well, you definitely were the pride of Terre Haute in your years at Indiana State, and the crowds were always so passionate about you, and people were so supportive and so proud of you being a representative of Terre Haute and Indiana State throughout those years. And again, talk about that, because I know that your rebounding in particular was what people recognize, notwithstanding that scoring prowess. But talk about that for our viewers with regard to those kind of things that go into doing that work. That a lot of people overlook that. But let's talk about that.
Yeah, it is. It's just it's more desire than anything. It's not a lot of talent to rebound. It kills me when I see guys 6'10", 6'11", that can't rebound. It's like it's not hard. All you got to do is you work hard, try to get the ball, and keep going after it until someone gets it. And it seems like anymore you watch high school, college, they shoot the three, and when somebody shoots the three, everybody's just running down the other end of the court. It's like that's all I could really do, and that's all I ever focused on. And I worked hard at it, and drill after drill after drill, and eventually, if you work something hard enough, you'll accomplish it.
Well, that was one statistic. People would say, and Coach Waltman used to be one who always commented about that people say, well, you might pass too much or you shoot too much, but nobody ever says you rebound too
Correct.
much.
Isn't that crazy? It's crazy. I remember when Sherman Dillard got hired, and I met him within his office. He goes, once I got this job, Jim, all I heard was your name, your name, your name. And they kept telling me how good of a rebounder you were and blah, 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 blah. But he says, there was one thing I was kind of surprised when you walked in my door. He goes, I thought you'd be 6'9". You're only 6'3", 6'4". So he sounded kind of depressed, but that's the first thing he told me. So,
well, I'm sure he was awful proud. And the fundamentals, where did you learn those?
A lot of them from Coach Jones from Terre Haute North. There used to be a little plastic thing he used to put on the rim up there, and it had a bunch of bubbles on it. And once you shot it, the ball would hit it, would bounce. You didn't know which way it was going to bounce. So, every day he had him on that drill probably for, 15, 20 minutes a day. I don't know what he saw in me as far as, I guess, training me towards that, but he did. And, I owed him a lot of credit for it.
And not only that, that career that you're kind of understating, but that led you to the Indiana State University Hall of Fame.
It did. Somehow or another, Joe, it did. You know that? Yeah, what a proud moment. There's been a lot more talent go through that school than me. I'm blessed to be part of that. But it's crazy. It really is. How can somebody of my size from this town that wasn't really heavily recruited? I was recruited, but not heavily by Division I, and then go into the Hall of Fame. So it's breathtaking. Really, it really is.
Well, there's no question it was well earned and deserved, without a doubt, and it did offer a tremendous amount of pride for everybody in Terre Haute. But talk about the pride it brought to your family.
Oh, pride. My dad was a basketball player at Glenn, so you know how it is. You live through your kids, and he was proud. So just like you, John. You got to be proud of all your kids, but your son's playing at the highest level, so you got to be proud of him. But yeah, my parents supported me through. They'd make every game they could. My dad worked at a factory, so he made 90% of the games. But
I absolutely saw your dad at all those games. Yeah, and he couldn't have been more.
And he's still go. He's still a big supporter of ISU, still at Terre Haute North. He just loves basketball. So
right.
Still loves it.
So let's talk about your immediate family, your wife, and let's talk about you guys are living in Terre Haute.
Living in Terre Haute on the east side. Live close to MCL, one of my favorite places to eat, unfortunately. But wife, she's 40 years old. She works at the health department. I have a daughter, and she's 6. Her name's Mia.
So we got me out working on rebounding drills.
I got her at the sports center right now playing. She's supposed to have practice tonight, but it got canceled. But I got her in a league out there. But she's into soccer, and she's into gymnastics, of course, and basketball. And I actually got her into volley tots last year, so she's pretty active. She's actually a really active little girl, and she's very tall for her age. So
we've talked about this with some of our other guests, but have you noticed any particular changes with youth sports compared to today as it was when you were growing up?
Yes, it's more organized than when I grew up. When I was in high school, a guy named Mike Lawson, I don't know if you remember Mike or
Absolutely.
Not. I played on an AAU team with him, but we had to travel just to find a game. We'd be in either Indianapolis or somewhere like that to play a game. But now it's so organized that these teams are gone every weekend, and it's amazing. I guess all the support they get and all the tournaments they have. What an exposure for kids anymore.
Right.
When I played back in high school with Mike, our biggest one, we went out to Vegas for a tournament. Of course, there's a lot of college coaches there. But by that there was no there was no Facebook at that time, no internet, so everything was by film. Unless you went out to a big place like that and coaches could see you play.
But the experiences that you got at the Glenn Center, you think kids are getting that kind of experience today?
No, I don't think so, Joe. And I say this to people, and I'm not harsh about it, but me growing up, probably you growing up, you would go around either a snow day. We had a snow day. I would be at the Glenn Center. I mean, that's just where kids went. And now, if you have a snow day, I think like the boys' club, everything's closed.
Yeah.
In the summertime, I went to the parks, Brittle Bank. I find, especially when I was in high school, and play a pickup basketball game. Now you go by these parks in the summer, and it's just the courts are empty.
Right.
And the kids have a lot more things to do. I mean, they have a lot. They're busier lives probably now. And with the social media and stuff, it's just like seems like they're always on their tablet or something when they need to be out horsing around.
Well, that is different, and you definitely don't see the same kind of interaction on
No,
the
you don't.
courts like you did when we were growing up. So you clearly had a distinguished career athletically, and then you've decided to pursue a career in law enforcement.
Law enforcement, yeah. When I graduated Indiana State, I went and played professionally overseas for a few years. Then
Where'd you play overseas?
Dijon, France. I played in France. So there's another thing that was kind of crazy. I get on a plane. I was 22 years old. They fly me over. Had an agent. He could speak a little bit of English. I get over there. You talk about a culture shock. You know what I mean? I get off the plane. They hire me a driver, pick me up. The guy could barely speak any English. Get over there. It's more like a tryout over there. I mean, they recruit you, but you go there. You go out there and try out and make sure that's what they want. Well, they ended up signing me after a couple weeks, and I stayed over there for that time, the first year for
And you
9
realize you're in
months.
Sealyville anymore.
Exactly. My coach spoke no English, so they had to hire an interpreter for me.
Well, being kind of like Tate's.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. But what was crazy, Joe, at halftime, my coach would drink a beer and smoke a cigarette in the locker room. I mean, you're talking about just weird. Then after the game, it was just all alcohol. You know what I mean? But what a great experience that was too. Came back, and then I got in law enforcement. Something I always wanted to do. I don't know why, but ever since I've been a little kid, that's what I wanted to do. So.
And you've done that at the highest level as well. So you became a member of the Indiana State Police.
Correct.
And have been for how many years now?
About 13 and a half. So I really enjoy it. It's a great job. I mean, it's got kind of crazy here in the last few. You see it in the last few years, but it's a great job. I mean, you meet a lot of great people, and I've got a personality where I like to talk. So if I go in the gas station or something like that, I mean, it could be an hour or two. But I enjoy helping the public. I really do. So it's just a great job.
And you've had some very interesting assignments. Hopefully you might be able to talk a little bit about those.
I have. I worked the road when I first came out for 4 or 5 years, but after that, for the last 8 years, I've been on the governor's detail. So wherever the governor goes, we travel with him. So it's either around the state, out of state, or out of country. So all governors, all the states, they always have a detail with them, kind of like the Secret Service, but we're more scaled down. But because they don't drive themselves, they don't do nothing. So wherever he goes, we go. We drive him and his wife and whoever immediate family he wants us to be with. But it's mostly his wife and him. So, I mean, I've been all over. I had Vice President Pence for 4 years, which was an incredible experience. I actually did his campaign tour when Trump picked him, along with the Secret Service. A few of us stayed back with him because he was more familiar with us in the Secret Service. So I did a lot of traveling with him on that. Then once he got that, then Holcomb got elected in and went right into Holcomb.
Well, needless to say, the people associated with the state police and the governor's office couldn't pick a better individual to be part of the security detail than Jim Cruz. So I know you continue to make everybody proud over here for that. And that's obviously had to be kind of a unique aspect of being in law enforcement, I see.
It is. It's totally different than being a guy out here working the road, because when you're working the road, if there's a threat, you always address the threat. Well, with him, your main priority is your protectee, so you run away from the threat. So it's totally 360 of what you learn in the academy. But that's the most important thing, is to keep him safe. So you never, unless you have to address the threat, you will. But the most important thing is to get him away from the threat. So it's just totally opposite. And some of the people I've met and some of the places I've been, and I mean, it's absolutely it's crazy. And I mean, I love what I do, and I wouldn't change it for nothing.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I take it that your decision to get into law enforcement turned out to be right on line with what you were expecting?
Yes, it was. Did I ever expect to do what I'm doing now here for the last 8 years? No. I mean, I've been to stuff like in 2012, I went to the Notre Dame Alabama National Championship game in Florida. Been to a lot of Game 6 out there at Boston Red Sox Stadium. I've been to a lot of sporting events, just a lot of cool things. The Koch brothers been to their place with Pence. I mean, their house looks like a hotel. But
So out of curiosity, when you're on that detail, how do you wear a state police issued uniform?
no, we're never in uniform. We're always in a suit and tie. It just depends what we're doing. Any kind of certain kind of fundraisers, anything like that, we're always in suit and tie. But on the weekends, I mean, we're on his schedule, so a lot of things, especially on the weekends, aren't on his schedule because his schedule's pretty tight. But on the weekends, it's usually open, so we're usually in khaki pants and a polo shirt. It just depends what we're going to do. But see, we got his wife too, Janet Holcomb. Well, she's a big gun advocate and she's a big hunter. So like last year, I drove her out to Wyoming. We went elk hunting and we went antelope hunting all the way out in Wyoming. So she shoots boars out of helicopters. She's something else, but
Sounds like we don't want to mess with her.
no, you don't. No, and the governor will tell you that too. You know that, but they're just great people. I mean, they're down to earth people, and I couldn't ask for nicer people to work for.
Well, those state troopers that are guarding some of those SEC football coaches that I saw during the years my son was down in Baton Rouge.
Mm-hmm.
Now they wore the full gear and they came out. We'd see them in the hotel, but then when they went out for
On the
games,
football field,
yeah,
they were mostly for the coach.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
the coach and the guy actually, I think for LSU, he did the governor's detail.
That's correct.
I've met him a couple
Yes.
times. He's a big guy.
He is a big guy.
You don't want to mess with him. He's a big
He's
boy.
got Indiana roots, so
Yeah, he does.
He does.
And,
So we had a long talk, but yeah, he's a great guy.
yeah, he was in Indiana a few years ago.
He was.
So
Yep.
yeah, nice guy. So it's crazy just the people you get to meet.
So you might be when you decide you get done with the governors here, we might have you down there guarding Coach O.
Hey, that'd be great. I wouldn't turn it down. That's for sure.
So let's talk about the future. What is Jimmy Cruz looking in the crystal ball see for the future?
Man, Joe, I don't know. I take one day at a time. I'm happy where I'm at now. Luckily I have my health, still have my family, and I really don't know whatever it brings at me. I could say I'd like to hit the lottery, but you got to play it first, right? So,
talking about your life, I think you hit the lottery.
you're right. I have, but I don't know, Joe. I mean, I like Terre Haute. Born and raised here, like I said, and I'm happy here. So a lot of my good friends are still here.
Well, we're always looking to recruit some candidates for political office. So maybe one of these days we might be able to twist your arm.
Maybe I can run for sheriff one day. You know that.
You would be a great candidate, and we've been harassing you to be on this show for quite a while. But as busy as your schedule is, and as busy as your travels take you with your professional job, that's been your priority and your family, and we appreciate that. But it's been great that you've been able to take time out of your busy schedule to be with us today and talk about your background and everything. And as I said, it was a true delight to get to watch you play all those years. And as I said, as much fun as you were to watch on the court, I will say watching your dad watch you was as special as anything. So I know you know how fortunate and blessed you were to have parents that you did, but that wasn't your focus when you're out there
Right.
getting 25 rebounds a game. But you can rest assured that your family could have been more proud, and it was neat to watch them. And as your daughter is getting older and you're seeing her do things just like you start to put all that into kind of perspective. So, but again, you really made Terre Haute proud in your contributions, and you continue to do that. So, any last words for our viewers tonight?
Well, no, Joe, I appreciate you having me on here. I apologize. I know you've been after me for the last month and a half, and with my schedule, it changes on a daily basis, so half the time I don't know what I'm doing. And I apologize, but I do appreciate it. And Joe, I like catching up when I see you out in public. I always catch up. All we do is talk
Absolutely.
sports. So, talking about my daughter, though, it's going to be crazy. She's playing this bitty ball now, and I mean, I'm on the edge of my seat already. You know what I mean? So, I mean, am I looking forward to it? Hopefully, she sticks with volleyball and basketball and soccer because I'm a sports fanatic, so I would love it. But I can't imagine living through my daughter you're living through your son and your daughters. I mean, what a great experience.
Well, you've always got a real positive experience. So, how about some positive for our viewers for 2021? you got a positive message that you can send along here?
Everybody stay healthy. We'll get through this Corona-19. Hopefully it's getting better now. Be kind to people. Sometimes you see people getting worked up over little things that shouldn't even get worked up. But stay kind in 2021. Let's get all over this together.
That's great advice. Jimmy Cruz, Hall of Famer. We're so glad he could join us, and as you can see, he's a great guy, and he's made Terrell proud in everything he's done. And we are so glad he could join us and share a little bit of his time with us, and get him back out on that security detail, and keeping our public officials safe. But he's, of course, now he doesn't have him out there pulling me over for speeding or anything, so that's a fortunate thing. So we're going to move right along here. We got a great show, and we have got the newest Superior Court judge in the county with us tonight. I don't think you need any introduction, but tell everybody who you are.
I'm Matt Sheehan. I'm the Superior Court Judge for Division 5, and nice to be here, Joe. Thanks for asking me to be here.
Well, Judge, we are honored that you could be here tonight, and you wasted no time. You were in running court bright and early Monday morning, and if I'm not mistaken, we're there late at night as well. So the voters are getting their money's worth. So tell us about your first few days on the bench in Division 5.
Well, it's been a tremendous honor to be able to take over for Judge Rader, and one of the things that I'm most proud of and looking forward to is the role that I'll play with drug court. Obviously, there's an article in the newspaper recently about my experience in city court, and as the city court judge, one of the things I was most passionate about was our PAIR program, which is a program to help individuals that are suffering from mental health issues get the services that they need, and to kind of get back on track with their lives and reward them if they are in compliance by dismissing their charges. And our drug court program is a similar problem-solving program, only on a little bit larger scale, and it's intended to address individuals that are suffering from substance use disorder and really getting them the help they need into recovery and being with them to really just kind of work through that part of their life and get back into being a productive member of our community. And so we've got a fantastic team of case managers and just a really good support staff, and that's an exciting thing to be a part of. So I'm really passionate about that, and that's really been, I guess, my primary focus is ensuring that program continues and trying to expand that program in addition to all the other responsibilities that every other judge has.
Well, I want to backtrack here a little bit. You were kind enough. We had some elected officials that were, based on their schedule, need to get sworn in at different times, so you were accommodating them with your courtroom from city court, and were yourself helping swear in those, and Judge Mulliken, the circuit court judge, swore you in, and we got a great opportunity to visit with your wife and your children. So what may have been more amazing is having you get through Christmas and New Year's with those children that you were still in one piece and able to get to work on the first day of court.
One of the things I kept looking for was whether or not the governor was going to limit the amount of gatherings that could be in one household, because if he limits it any further, my family's done for. We've got so many kids. We were right at that threshold where we may not be able to even have family dinner together if you were to restrict it further.
Well, we talked, I know when you've been here in the past, and we talked about your father and your mom, and let's talk about your family a little bit.
Well, you obviously knew my father well. He was the county surveyor for a number of years before he passed away, and as a kid, I think I probably was about 3 feet high when I first met you, Joe. When my dad and I were passing out campaign literature for his boss, Charlie Schilling, a long time ago. And, my family's always been very involved with the party. And I just had lots of very fond memories of doing those activities and campaigning and going to parades. And that was something that was really special that my dad and I did together, and I enjoyed. And so it was really an honor to be able to follow in his footsteps into public service and continue to give back to our community. And my mother, she's a retired registered RN, and she worked for 32 years at Union Hospital, so she was also in a service profession and cared deeply for people. And my older brother's a dermatologist, and he's obviously in a service profession as well. So I think my mom and dad really set a really good foundation for my brother and I to care about people and be empathetic and try to be there when people need us the most. And it's a tremendous feeling to be able to live and work in this community and grow up in this community and now be in a position where I can give back. And I do help, I think a lot of times as a judge, I think people have a misconception that it's all about sentencing people and serious crimes. And those are the things that hit the newspaper. But what the public probably doesn't see is the day-to-day struggles that people have. For example, in Division 5, we are the court that's charged with the responsibility of issuing specialized driving privileges. And that's something that is a tremendous problem in our community. And a lot of times it's through really circumstances that people really find themselves in that are unable to dig themselves out of. And it could be the difference of whether they get to work legally or not. And so just being in a position where I can listen to people's stories and try to do my best and use the court's power to put people in a better situation, if possible, is something I really take a lot of pride in.
And would you say there was any particular trade or training or experience that you have that helps facilitate that more than another?
That's a tough question. To be honest with you, I think, before I went to law school, I worked in marketing and sales and just dealing with people and just, listen to people's stories and try to help them and be there for what they need. And just being a good listener for people, I think, is very important. And I think I've tried to use that skill, not only as an attorney, but as a judge now, and just being able to listen to people and empathize with their situation and try to, again, take into consideration everything that's being said and try to be a creative problem solver, to best address the situation that's before the court in every case.
I think that's a very astute observation, because I think people, particularly when they come in front of a judge, probably think that there's some class in law school where they say this is the judge class, and it doesn't really work that way. Now, I know they obviously have a little judge school that they're going to have new judges attend, but again, those life experiences, I guess, and even experiences with your father and your mother and how those play a role in what kind of a judge you are.
Yeah, and again, I do lean on a lot of the things that my dad, had said to me, conversations we had over the years. And one of the things my dad always told me was that you really never judge a person until you've walked a mile in their shoes, and you never really know what somebody's going through in their personal life. And I've shared this quote with a number of my friends, and my dad always used to say, everybody has their own private corner of hell that nobody else knows about. And so when you're dealing with people in court, oftentimes that's their worst time in their life and one of the most stressful situations they'll ever encounter. And so I think you just have to be understanding of that and give everybody a fair opportunity to present themselves and try to understand their situation and treat everybody fairly and solve the problem the best you can.
So let's talk about your wife and your children. So how was the holiday season for you all?
The first thing I have to say is my wife is a saint, and she is very much my better half.
Well, that was apparent at the swearing in.
Yeah. So I make that very clear every time I talk to anybody about Darcy. I couldn't do any of this without her love and support. She's been there for me through the whole step, going to law school, and it's kind of a funny story because, and I think I shared this last time I was on your show, but I never aspired to go to law school really until I met Tony Tanous, and I was working at Verizon as a manager, and he and I became friends, and he let me kind of shadow him and watch some of his disability hearings, and I saw the impact that he had with people and how beneficial that can be for people, and I decided I wanted to do that. Well, one day I told my wife that I had some exciting career news, and I had gone to Walden's bookstore and bought a book called Law School for Dummies, and came home and she said, well, what's this exciting news? And I pulled out this book. I said, well, I'm going to law school, and I'm going to read Law School for Dummies from cover to cover. And she'll tell you now that it was really easy to be supportive of that when she thought it was just a phase. And it wasn't probably 6 months later that I moved out, and we lived apart while I went to law school for my first year, and the rest is kind of history. But without her being there for me, I couldn't have done it. So I got to thank her for all of her love and support over the years and always being in my corner. And then now that we have 4 kids, which includes 3-year-old triplets, as you know, she's just amazing. She works full time, and she's a tremendous mother and just a fantastic wife and my best friend. So I can't say enough good things about her.
Well, that's very admirable, and we that's very clear of her role. And every time you see in public that she's got it all in control. But that had to be quite a leap of faith that you were taking back then Talk about that a little more.
Yeah, it was, and I didn't at the time. I didn't know if it was going to pan out or if it was the right decision or the wrong decision. But I just, again, was really touched by a couple cases that I watched Mr. Tanous try. And as your viewers may or may not know, he mainly does Social Security disability. And the story I'll never forget is there was a gentleman that was in his mid-50s, and he had basically dropped out of school in the 8th grade, didn't have much of an education, but took a lot of pride in working in a factory. And he took a lot of pride in the fact that he was the best forklift driver you could ever ask for. And he was involved in an automobile accident that caused him to be partially paralyzed and not be able to work. And the company he worked for was kind enough to let him stay on for purposes of benefits until they closed, because they knew their factory was closing down. Well, that created a problem for his application for disability, because he worked beyond his date of his injury, the onset of his injury, and he lost his home, had to move in with his parents, lost everything he had. And when Mr. Tanous was able to get an award of disability back pay for him, that was a life-changing event. And he was crying and hugged Mr. Tanous, and just seeing that really touched me. And I thought, I want to help people. I want to be there for that kind of a situation. And so that really just inspired me to stick with it and do whatever I could to get through law school and be an attorney and try to be there for people when they need it like that.
That's a great story. That's a great motivation. So the experiences that you had in the Terrell City Court, I assume that you feel those are going to be quite a help to you as you're making this transition over to the courthouse.
Absolutely. And as I said before, City Court is volume-wise is the busiest court that we have in our county, because we do traffic offenses, ordinance violations, and criminal misdemeanors. Thanks to Michelle Edwards, who's here, I got to give a shout out to her, our city clerk. We do an amazing job over there, and she does a fantastic job on her staff. But in 2019 alone, we resolved over 10,000 cases in that court alone. And so just dealing with that kind of a volume of caseload and still giving people the fair opportunity to be heard in each of their cases, but to resolve cases that quickly was definitely something that I hadn't anticipated that I had to get good at. But again, the vast majority of the people coming to city court are good people that maybe have made a bad decision or need a little bit of assistance getting to where they need to be. And it's really just about giving people an opportunity to be heard and giving them a chance to get back on their feet and do what they need to do.
Judge, with all due respect, you're being a little too nice to Michelle here. I mean, I know that she's well deserved all the compliments for her job that she does in her real job, but she might start thinking that she might need to just deserve some praise here for her work on the set here at Chat with the Chair. So let's not.
Now, Michelle, I'm gonna tell you, Joe will do this to you, thinking you're not working hard, to try to get you to think you're not working hard enough. This is what he does. He just wants you to think you need to work harder. So So.
Well, that's great.
No, City Court was actually, like I said, it was a fantastic learning opportunity, and I just really enjoyed working with that court and their staff, and then also, like I said, being a part of the PAIR program. Now, I will say I did get an order from the Supreme Court today, which granted me authority to run both courts until the governor appoints a replacement. So. Although I love
Darcy,
although I love City Court, I don't know that I loved it enough to do it, and in addition to Division 5. But yeah, for the time being, I will have authority over both courts.
Wow, you're going to be really busy.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's big news from the Supreme Court today. Then.
Yeah, I think that also includes the authority to have a pro tem though. So I think that'll be shortcoming. So.
Right. So, as you said, I think that the most likely information that the general public gets about Division 5 and Division 4 is about the criminal cases. But needless to say, there's many other cases that you're handling. So, talk about kind of the docket and the types of cases that Division 5 Superior Court is handling.
I think Division 5 is most commonly known for being the court that handles all offenses relating to drinking and driving, and so we do handle a lot of those. We obviously oversee our drug court program. We have jurisdiction over all major felonies, including murder, and civil cases, small claims, evictions, basically anything under the sun we do. The only exception to that would be we don't handle probate cases, and we don't do a lot of divorce cases. Usually only on special if it's a special judge case. But really anything else we would do. And right now our docket's mainly low level criminal offenses and small claims and evictions proceedings right now. And that's presented its own challenges because we're still relying mainly on Zoom proceedings, which is nice, but again, you have to be cognizant of the fact that not everybody in our community has the technology and the finances to have a computer or a cell phone to call in and participate in those hearings. So we're certainly cognizant of that and trying to make sure that everybody is being treated fairly and given an opportunity to come to court. And if they don't have the resources or the technology to do a Zoom hearing, we'll make arrangements to allow them to come in person.
Now, how has that been for you, that kind of transition? Because obviously your judicial career in city court had been primarily with dealing with people in person, people coming in, and as you said, you oftentimes have to make some assessments of people and their circumstances, so probably a little easier to do in person than it is on the Zoom.
Yeah, it is. One of the things that I found Zoom to be, I guess, less than ideal is it does take away the ability to get a little bit of a sense of the person and to kind of really truly get a sense of where they're coming from and to kind of, I don't want to say size them up, but you can really tell a lot about a person from their mannerisms and their posturing and the way they conduct themselves in court. And I think a lot of, I guess I don't want to say a lot, but some litigants, I guess, have been overly, I guess, too comfortable by calling in on Zoom, and the formality of the courtroom and the seriousness of it has been lost on some people. And I can appreciate how that would be easy to do if you're sitting at home trying to watch your kids and you're using your cell phone. So I try not to read too much into that. But again, it's definitely not ideal.
And I would assume that with regard to and I know you've spent a lot of time both with the drug court team and with Judge Rader in the weeks and months leading up to your assuming the bench in Division 5, but I assume that venue as well is a little more difficult when you're trying to connect and relate with the participants in the drug court.
It is, and we do the best we can. But again, it would be much better. It's much better to have that in person and have that personal connection when you're talking to somebody and developing that relationship than what you get through a computer screen. And sometimes they're not even able to use a computer screen. It may just be a telephone call. And telephone calls are particularly challenging. I really don't like doing that. I feel like I need to see the person and see kind of their facial expressions and their body language and things like that. But again, our staff, our case managers are doing a fantastic job of having personal contact with our participants and being there, even though they can't necessarily come into court like we used to right now.
And so right now, for the most part, are all court proceedings in the Superior Courts being done in some remote fashion, primarily through Zoom as opposed to phone calls?
Yeah, so I think the vast majority of the judges are doing it that way. There are still occasions, in certain cases, the judges are left to make their own decision if they want to have the people come into court or not. For example, Judge Newton, I think he's limiting in-person appearances, but he will allow people that are requesting a protective order to come into the courtroom and be in person because he feels that he needs to have that in-person observation to make a accurate decision whether or not a protective order should be issued or not. And I think that's a good call on his part. But for the most part, I think most of the judges are still trying to rely on Zoom as much as possible because we have to balance. Obviously, we have to balance not only our own safety, but the safety of our staff as well, and the safety of our litigants. And no one wants to be responsible for causing somebody to be exposed to COVID unnecessarily.
So if anybody has any questions, if they do come to the courthouse, there is security that they can answer their questions, and if the circumstances allows it, they'll be allowed in. If not, then they make an appointment. Or
yeah, they would need to make an appointment, and typically, for example, we had a litigant today that was the second day in a row they tried to call in on Zoom and was unable to get connected, and so I had my staff just tell him that he can come to court tomorrow in person and address it that way. His case could be heard, but we had to make a special accommodation for him because for whatever reason it just wasn't working out for him to attend virtually.
Is there any expectation at this point, Judge, with regard to how long that situation will continue?
Well, I think the Supreme Court has issued a moratorium on jury trials until March, and we're hopeful that with the vaccine and the ramping up of the vaccine that we can resume jury trials in March. I think that might be a little optimistic, but that's our hope.
And with regard to your court, then, and so the viewers know how many of the superior courts there are and what the setup there in the courthouse is.
Sure. So there's a total of 6 superior courts, and plus our juvenile court and city court, and the superior courts are divided. We divide our responsibilities, but with the exception of Division 2, all the other superior courts have criminal jurisdiction, and Division 2 mostly handles civil cases and family law matters. And then our juvenile court is handled by a magistrate, Dan Kelly, who does a fantastic job, and that's housed in a different building. So at the courthouse there, we have just the superior courts.
And those the individuals that are in jail currently, are they appearing in person in the courtroom at this time?
No, we're still doing virtual appearances for them as well. And again, that has presented a lot of challenges, particularly with the timing of it. But I think the jail, our sheriff and the jail staff has done a very good job of trying to do that safely and make sure that the inmates are brought in individually. And then after their hearing, then the room is cleaned and sterilized, and then the next defendant comes in and they appear virtually. But that whole process has been a challenge to try to work out because just because of the logistics of it, you can only have one defendant in a room at a time, and then the room has to be cleaned. And so then when you have one defendant in the room, they need some time privately to talk to their attorney before they address the court, and then we have to come on for the hearing. So it presents a lot of challenges, but again, I think we're doing the best we can under the circumstances.
And you have got tremendous staff, and that's obviously important for all judges, but again, like the circumstances that you're talking about, and even the additional restrictions and obligations that are being put on everybody, that pushes everybody, but you've got a great staff to help you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I inherited a fantastic staff from Judge Rader, and the staff that we have has been there for a number of years, and you really get a lot of institutional knowledge over the years from judge to judge, and the staff stays, and so I'm benefiting from their knowledge and their experience running the court, and again, I couldn't be happier.
And with regard to, I guess, day in the life, so to speak, the courthouse itself, the hours of operation, and kind of how the court operates under the current circumstances.
The courthouse is open from 8 to 4, and now I know access is limited to the public, but typically the normal hours would be from 8 to 4. The clerk's office does stop accepting filings at 3:30, so they can kind of close out their books before the end of each day, and that's a directive from the clerk himself, and that's obviously Monday through Friday. My docket varies. We usually start our civil proceedings at 9 a.m., and then we have our criminal docket in the afternoon at 1:30. Then on Wednesdays, we do our drug court staffing from 8 a.m. until 10, and then our drug court docket from 10 to 12. And then that typically runs over a little bit, and then we do our normal criminal docket in the afternoon at 1:30. So we're in the process of maybe trying to reevaluate the timing of some of those hearings, because we're trying to expand the drug court program as much as we can, and the program's being so successful and growing, which is a good thing, but it does present some challenges on how you manage that, because ideally you would want to spend at least 3 to 5 minutes with each participant at every hearing, going over their individual circumstances. And when you have 90 to 100 participants, that can be a challenge if you're meeting at least once a week like we typically do, depending on which phase of the program they're in. So we're currently experimenting with possibly doing drug court on multiple days throughout the week instead of just the one day a week like we currently do. So we'll have to make some changes. But again, if that's the worst thing that we have to do to grow the program, I'm certainly willing to do that.
The drug court was definitely a big component of the campaign, and the discussions that you had with your campaign, and I know with voters and the general public about that, and your opportunity to observe things leading up to taking the bench, and now the this week starting on the bench. What is it you're seeing with regard to drug court?
Well, it's really the same things that we've talked about over and over again. That in my opinion, that is the most vital program that we can offer for our community, because we have historically taken people that suffer from drug use and substance use disorder, and putting them in jail and putting them in prison doesn't seem to work, and it just perpetuates the problem, and it causes just a lot of challenges for when they try to re-enter into our community, and it makes it harder for them to become productive members of our society. And I think all of the evidence shows that if we can take those people and get them the treatment that they need and get them into the recovery community and get the support that they need and help build their lives back, they're going to be there's a much greater chance that they're going to avoid reoffending and finding themselves back in the system. And so, again, my only concern is I wish we had more resources and a greater opportunity to offer that program to a larger number of people, because I think we're only capturing a very, very small amount of the people that would otherwise benefit from that program. And so as the judge over that court and as we steer that program, my hope is to continue to grow that program. Now, again, one of the things that I don't think our community probably is truly aware of is the extent to which Vigo County has some of the best problem-solving courts in the state of Indiana. We have the Veterans Court program, the Drug Court program, the Adult Mental Health Court program, the PAIR program, and I know Judge Mulliken and Judge Rader are both doing a lot of problem-solving courts for families. And so I don't think the judges get enough credit for, again, not just, I'm not saying this for myself, but the judges that are currently running those programs and that had overseen those programs before I took the bench. I don't think they get enough credit for the hard work they put into bringing those programs to our community and all the success that comes out of it.
Needless to say, with some of those courts, there's obviously a significant amount of confidentiality and privacy associated with the information and the records associated with it. But you're spot on with regard to probably the general public not appreciating that, and the number of programs that are problem solving in nature that really originated in Vigo County and have been continued and expanded in Vigo County.
Yeah, Barbara Bruno created the drug court program back in, I think it was 1995, and so she built that program up. And at the time, that was something that really wasn't being done and wasn't heard of in this area. And so, as the years have gone on and over her tenure and Judge Rader's tenure and hopefully my tenure, it's just something that continues to evolve and grow and get better results and expand and to try to help the greatest amount of people possible. Because the reality of it is I don't think anybody can say that mental health issues or substance use issues has not touched their family, myself included. Everybody knows a friend or a family member that has had struggles in either one of those categories. And so, again, I just think that that's a tremendous opportunity to start getting these people help and helping them get their lives back together and get back on track and be part of their success story, instead of just demonizing them and putting them in prison, because over and over again that doesn't work. Now, again, this program is a privilege, so it's not something that everybody gets the opportunity to do. And once they're in there, they're held to very, very strict standards, and they're also held accountable, so they have to do their part. But if they're willing to put in the work and meet me halfway, I'm more than happy to be right there for them and support them to get them back on track. But they've got to do their part, we've got to do our part.
And that's very well said, because I think, again, the information out to the general public with regard to those problem solving, but it's also not just people passing out cards to get out of jail free. There's a tremendous amount of work going on from the participants, in addition to your staff, yourself, these other judges that are involved in these problem solving courts, and their teams that are working. And those are the things that are happening, behind the scenes, that are happening over lunch hours, past the 4 o'clock, before 8 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Those are things that have happening within that courthouse that are changing people's lives in a good way.
Well, I guess to just that point, I do want to, share, just to underscore that point. So last week during our drug court hearings, there was a gentleman that is in our program, and he was having some struggles, and he was really finding his sober living situation to be challenging for him. But he shared with me that his 15-year-old son had reached out to him and expressed that he wanted to talk with him and wanted to spend some time with him. And that was the first time in 2.5 years that he's had contact with his son, and that was very exciting for him and was very motivating to him. And to see that, he's reconnecting with his children, and they're seeing a change in him for the positive, and they're willing to get back involved in his life because of his efforts through drug court. I can't think of a better experience to be involved in and be part of somebody's story than something like that.
That's great, and I think we were remiss to also not mention that the people who, of course, have been involved with these problem solvings have sought out grants and assistance, and that the county council and people associated with county government have also made those same commitments in a financial way to help to try to solve some of these issues that are underlying in our society.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up because, I want to thank Vicki Wager and the rest of our county council members and our city council members for all of their support, because at the end of the day, we can't just do this by ourselves. We need our elected officials and the rest of our community to really come together and fund these kind of programs. And I'm excited to work with our council and really involve them in all these successes that we're having. And again, I couldn't think of better people to work with. And I've had relationships with most of our council members in the past. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's a very exciting opportunity, and looking forward to helping these folks.
So it's been a tough, challenging year for everybody in 2020. What's 2021 look like for Judge Sheehan and his family and the court?
Well, I hope my kids will behave themselves, and I trust my wife will ensure that takes place, because they don't listen to me, but they seem to listen to her. So on a micro level, if we can get through that with my family, we'll be in good shape. But no, I think 2020 set the bar very low, and so therefore I'm optimistic we'll have a much better 2021. I think we're off to a good start there. So again, you start getting discouraged, just remember how low that bar was in 2020. It's only up from here.
Well, we know how busy you are, and as I said, you were hitting the ground running this week, and we were so appreciative that you could take a few minutes out of your busy day to come over here and talk with us. And this has been another great addition to Chat with the Chair, and Jimmy Cruz is another great guy to have here. So we appreciate Jim Cruz, the Hall of Famer, and Judge Matthew Sheehan for being with us. So this has been another.
So did we add on to the suit jacket? We now have a guitar.
Oh, we didn't know, about the ukulele. If you hadn't known about the ukulele,
all right.
Judge happy to sing along here. So everybody stay safe.